Federal Trade Commission found it very interesting that after their interview with J.D. Vance, raw transcripts of the interview were released to the public. The same courtesy was not given to the Republican Party with Kamala Harris's interview. Her transcripts were not released, so the Federal Trade Commission, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC. I think I said Federal Trade Commission before. Whatever. The FCC requested raw transcripts for the Kamala Harris 60 Minutes interview, and they found it sort of shocking. The original interview that was published by CBS was trimmed down to 20 minutes. The FCC got a hold of that footage, the entire unedited Kamala Harris interview, and they decided in the most gangster move of 2025 to just release it to YouTube on the FCC's official YouTube channel. So it's up. We're going to watch it. It's 53 minutes long. 53 minutes long. The original was trimmed down to 23. So let's see. Actually, let's just double check that real quick. So this is 53 minutes. Yep, this is the unedited version right here. And then this is the original, which is 20 minutes. 20 minutes flat. So we're going to be watching this.
You know that mold is at an all-time high today, which is the one thing I am allergic to.
Yeah?
Okay.
What's up,
Pollen is
Milk?
down.
What's up, Gabriel?
Mold is up. You know, I know that as a matter of fact because I was watching CBS this morning.
There you go.
Now that I think about it.
Learn something new every day.
And again, I want to just reinforce, this is posted by the Federal Communications Commission on YouTube, their official YouTube channel. Let's check. What are they even posting? They don't even post anything. They just post like whatever. What is this? This is what they post.
We can recognize it as being valid. And
Oh, this is hilarious.
Okay. And then you know that mold is at an all-time high.
This is gold.
Which is the one thing I am allergic to.
Yeah?
Okay. Pollen is down.
Mold is up.
Mold is up. You know, I know that as a matter of fact because I was watching CBS this morning.
There you go.
Now that I think about it.
Learn something new every day.
Indeed.
Coming around. Done. Got it on both.
Everybody happy?
This is gonna be so good.
Good?
I haven't seen this, by the way. This is raw reaction. I've heard it's really funny though.
And thank you for inviting us into your home.
Of course.
We're going to be running this on the anniversary of the Hamas attack
Yeah.
on Israel.
October 7th.
So let's just start with Israel.
Good one. She knows the date, guys. She knows the date.
Okay, whoever's in the dining room. Okay.
So yeah, just to start with Israel.
Okay.
The events of the past few weeks have pushed us to the brink, if not into, an all-out regional war in the Middle East. What can the U.S. do at this point to stop this from spinning out of control?
Well, let's start with October 7th.
Oh, really?
Because obviously, what we do now must be in the context of what has happened. And as I reflect on a year ago, and that 1,200 people were massacred, young people at a festival, at a music festival. 250 hostages were taken, including Americans. Women were brutally raped. And as I said then, I maintain Israel has a right to defend itself, we would, and how it does so matters. And as we fast forward into what we have seen in the ensuing weeks and months, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed.
What's up, Amit?
And we know that...
Amit, just so you know, we're reacting to the raw, unedited interview, 60 Minutes interview of Kamala Harris. So the released interview was 20 minutes long. This is 53 minutes long. They trimmed, sliced, and diced and cut her up. And it's against the law to take portions of what somebody said and make it seem like they're responding to a different question when they're not. So this is what it's about. This was released on October 7th of last year. So we're going to look at it. A lot of it's about Israel.
And I think most agree, this war has to end. And that has to be our number one imperative. And that has been our number one imperative. How can we get this war to end? Well,
what do you mean, what's wrong with the sound? Does it sound weird? Of last year. So we're going to look at it. A lot of it's about Israel.
and I think most
Does there appear to be something wrong with the sound?
critical elements of that are we have got to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done. We have to get aid in. We have to lay the path toward a two-state solution.
Wrong.
I do believe that we must maintain that as an objective, no matter how out of reach it seems at the moment. And the work that we have to do is also...
It's too quiet. You can't hear very well?
pay attention to what is
How's
happening
that?
every day in the region and put
Wrong.
U.S. resources into everything we can do diplomatically.
Is the whole thing too
and
quiet?
otherwise to
Is the whole thing too quiet, or is it just... How's this? Is this a little better? Test.
de-escalate what is happening in the
How's
region.
this? Better?
We supply Israel with billions of dollars in military aid. And yet, Prime Minister Netanyahu seems to be charting his own course. The Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration, has pressed him to agree to a ceasefire. He's resisted. You urged him not to go into Lebanon. He went in anyway. He has promised to make Iran pay for the missile attack, and that has the potential of expanding the war. Does the U.S. have no sway over Prime Minister Netanyahu?
Well, let's start with this. On this subject, the aid that we have given Israel allowed Israel to defend itself against 200 ballistic missiles that were just meant to attack the Israelis and the people of Israel. And I think that is the most recent example of why what we do to assist in their defense around military aid is important. And when we think about the threat that Hamas, Hezbollah presents, Iran, I think that it is, without any question, our imperative to do what we can to allow Israel to defend itself against those kinds of attacks. Now, the work that we do diplomatically with the leadership of Israel is an ongoing pursuit around making clear our principles, which include the need for humanitarian aid, the need for this war to end, the need for a deal to be done which would release the hostages and create a ceasefire. And we're not going to stop in terms of putting that pressure on Israel and in the region, including with other leaders in the region, including Arab leaders.
But it seems
I don't know how you guys feel, but I completely and fundamentally disagree with the idea of a ceasefire, right? A ceasefire, there shouldn't be anyone to have a ceasefire with. Hamas and every member of that organization should be dead. Their 1988 charter literally says the day of judgment will not come about until the Muslims fight the Jews, killing the Jews. When the Jews hide behind stones and trees, the stones and trees will say, "Oh Muslims, oh Abdullah, there's a Jew behind me, come and kill him." Fathi Hamad, a senior leading official of Hamas, literally said, "All of you Palestinians in diaspora warming up, wherever you find a Jew on this globe, take care of him by way of slaughter and killing." Active calls for genocide. This is a terrorist organization that has killed thousands of Jewish people, that repeatedly exerts its capacity for violence and needs to be dealt with and taken care of so that the region never gets into this situation again. There shouldn't be anyone to reach a ceasefire with. Unfortunately, we now have one. Luckily, hostages are coming home at some rate, not fast enough, that's for sure. But the more you just allow Hamas to continue to be around, the more you risk that this just happens again in a couple years. This interview was published on October 7th, 2024. This is the full, unedited version. So the Federal Trade Commission was concerned about potential breach of law. You can't take what somebody said in one part of an interview and paste it over a question in a different part of the interview. That's against the law because it's misrepresenting that person. Okay, so CBS released the transcript of J.D. Vance's interview directly after it happened. They did not release the transcript of the Kamala Harris interview. So the Federal Communications Commission requested the transcript, and then they requested the full video, and they just released it on YouTube. So this video is on the Federal Communications Commission's official YouTube in potentially the most gangster move of this administration so far. They released the whole thing. For reference, the originally published interview, 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris was 20 minutes. This is 53 minutes and 48 seconds.
Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Is the volume fine now, guys?
That
the volume is cranked on everything. I have the volume everywhere cranked.
That your administration has repeatedly been blindsided by Netanyahu. And in fact, he has rebuffed just about all of your administration's entreaties.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen.
What are you saying?
And we're not going to stop doing that. We're not going to stop pursuing.
That was not the question.
What is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Just one last. Do we have a real close ally in Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I think, with all due respect, the better question is, do we have an important alliance between the American people and the Israeli people? And the answer to that question is yes.
I agree with that. Okay,
and
fine.
We are going to
Fair
do
enough.
what is important to support whatever leadership is in Israel that is defending the security of the state of Israel.
Let's shift gears here. Most basic of questions. Why do you want to be President of the United States?
Oh boy, here we go.
There are many reasons, but probably first and
Wrong.
foremost,
We're going to
I
win big
truly
league.
believe in the promise of America. I do. And I love the American people. You know, we are a people who have ambition and aspirations and
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question.
and hope. If you look at the character of who we are, and
What are these softball questions? Seriously. Wait, what do you mean you can't hear? There's no way you can't hear. Hold up. I have everything cranked. What do you mean you can't hear?
Question that is. What a stupid question.
and hope. If you look at the character of who we are, and
What are these softball questions? Seriously. There's no way you can't hear this. I have everything completely cranked. Hold up. I'll try one more thing.
how we have achieved the strength that we have achieved.
Yeah,
I
somebody's
believe
saying
in
C,
large
you can't
part
hear.
It is because of our character and our belief in the promise of America. And I'm running for president because I want to do everything that is possible to create an opportunity for people to achieve those goals, those ambitions, and those dreams. And that is why you will hear me talk about my plan for an opportunity economy, to invest in what we can do, not only to bring the cost of living and prices down for folks, because even though we've achieved a lot of success, prices are still too high. You know it, I know it.
Achieved a lot of
But
success
what we can
where?
do to invest in the innovation that is happening in startups and our small businesses, what we can do to invest in the industries of the future, what we can do to maintain America's strength in the global context.
But that's why you want to run. That's why you want to be.
That's why I'm running.
President.
That and some other reasons.
But you're asking.
Make sure to like the live, guys, by the way.
the American people to make you the most powerful person on the planet. Why do you deserve the American people's
Oh,
votes?
please answer the question.
First of all, I have a career and a history.
Me
which is
too.
Very clear. That I think of my role of leadership, and in particular now for the last 4 years as vice president and moving forward as president, if the voters will have me, as being a leader on behalf of all Americans. As you know, I spent the majority of my career as a prosecutor. And I'm
What's your Michael Eaton? Thank you for the subscribe. Tora, what's your question? And why do you deserve to be president? Well, I have a career and I have a history. So do I. Should I be in the Oval Office? Should I be president of the United States? Should I be the single most powerful human being on the planet because I have a career and I have a history? Everyone has a career into history. What are you saying? She's not saying anything. Why put your soul through these people? Because I think it's important work. It's hard work and it's sometimes dangerous work, but I think it's important work.
I'm going to tell you, I never asked a victim of crime, a witness, whether they were a Democrat, are you Republican, are you an independent. The only thing I ever asked folks is, are you okay? And I believe that
Which means what?
America deserves a leader who works on behalf of all Americans and understands the importance of knowing that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And my career and my work has always been about being grounded in common sense approaches to getting things done. And when it comes to what we need to do as it relates to national security, we just had that conversation. That includes understanding and respecting the power and the strength of the United States of America and our then responsibility to be a global leader, to nurture and strengthen our alliances around the world, to respect the U.S. military and its most noble mission, to do the work of appreciating alliances, be it NATO or others, to do the work of pursuing diplomacy when it is in the best interest of our national security and prosperity. And my experiences tell me not only that those must be priorities of the United States of America and the President of the United States of America and the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America, but also all of those experiences tell me that the American people in this election have a clear choice. Because on the other side of the equation, we are looking at the former President, Donald Trump, who has shown himself to be, when he was a commander-in-chief, someone who gave away America's standing in terms of our principles of standing up to dictators and autocrats.
Fake news. It's fake, phony, fake.
Today. Someone who was prepared to walk away from our alliances. NATO is the strongest military alliance the world has ever known. We have seen someone in Donald Trump who openly...
Who's this? It's just some lady. I don't know. She ran for president or something. She lost really badly. Yeah, I don't know.
criticizes the United States military, men and women.
Never proven, by the way. Completely anonymous source. Never corroborated. Never confirmed.
Who are prepared to, at great sacrifice, serve our country and defend the principles upon which we were founded. He calls them suckers and losers.
Wrong.
Never happened. Completely anonymous source. Never confirmed. Never corroborated. Completely false. There was other people with him at this time that literally said this did not happen. She's so loose with information. She's willing to throw accusations every which way at anyone but herself. Anything that scores her little points.
Madam Vice President,
I have no substance, but I can lob baseless accusations at Donald Trump. That's what I can do. She didn't run a campaign for herself. She ran a campaign against Trump.
a quarter of registered voters still say they don't know you. They don't know what makes you tick. And why do you think that is? I mean, you have been vice president for almost 4 years. You've been on the national scene for longer. What's the disconnect?
It's an election bill. And I take it seriously that I have to earn everyone's vote. And that's why I'm traveling our country. I've seen you in a few states in the last couple of days. I am talking with folks where they live. I am listening to folks and working to earn the vote of every American. This is an election for President of the United States. No one should be able to take for granted that they can just declare themselves a candidate and automatically receive support. You have to earn it. And that's what I intend
They're
to
eating the
Let me tell you
dogs.
what your
Oh, that was the
critics
wrong
and
one.
columnists say.
Bigly.
Okay.
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so
On
many things. You
everything.
were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now
Marijuana, internal investigations in the police force. What was the other one? What's it called? Truancy laws.
you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all. Now you're not. So many that people don't truly know
Trust
what you
you.
believe.
They don't trust
or
you.
what you stand for. And I know you've heard that.
So,
If you
let's
stand
be
for
clear.
everything, you stand for nothing.
First of all, a lot of the positions that you were talking about have been discussed and dispensed with in 2020, 4 years ago. But let me be clear on something. In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States. Not a senator from a particular state, not coming from a particular state, but Vice President of the United States of America. And I have been traveling our country, and I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground, common sense solutions, building consensus. And that is why I have taken the positions that I take. Not dispensing with my values, but understanding we have to, a real leader has to find consensus. So, for example, on the issue of fracking, I've been very clear since 2020. I will not end fracking. I did not. as
Fake
Vice President.
news.
In fact, as Vice President of the United States, I cast the decisive vote. I broke the tie in Congress that now.
That's not the question he's asking. He's asking, you've been very loose with your positions. We know what your position in 2024 is. That's the point, right? We know that you're pro-fracking now, or you're anti-fracking now, but you were pro-fracking. We know that you hold different positions now. That's the whole point of the question. The whole point of the question is, it seems like back in 2020, you had very polar opposite positions to the positions that you hold now. Why is that? If you stand for everything, you stand for nothing. What do you stand for? We don't know what it is. It seems like you support whatever's popular, right? Marijuana is not popular. You support banning it, right? You lock countless people up in prison for smoking it. Then, all of a sudden, when you lose support for wanting to ban it, you flip-flop around and all of a sudden you're pro-legalization. That's the point. It seems like you're very fluid with your positions based on whatever's popular, whatever will garner you the most support, and whatever will get you the most votes. That's the point of the question. Just answer it. Why did you flip positions? Was there a more compelling argument you heard? What is that compelling argument?
More leases for fracking. On the issue of health care in America, my value has always been that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it, which is why I cast the tie-breaking vote in the United States Congress that has now allowed us to cap the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month.
Again, that wasn't the question, and we don't care. We do not care, right? What we care about is that at one point you supported abolishing private insurance, and now you don't, right? Because abolishing private insurance was unpopular. So you switched, and now you don't support it. You support a private option, right? That's the point of the question. Just answer it.
The work that I have been a part of and helped lead about capping the cost of prescription medication for our seniors at $2,000 a year, all born out of my belief that we need to bring the price of medication down because it has been too expensive for too many people to the point that they couldn't even afford to fill their prescription. That's why I've been a huge advocate for what we have accomplished finally to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of the American people.
You have said that your values haven't changed, but your positions have. And I think people want to know, is this evolution or, as your critics say, opportunism?
I think that we should understand the importance of a leader building consensus. I believe in building consensus.
What does that have to do with what he just asked you? We don't care. You've mentioned consensus about 100 times. We don't care about it. Answer the question. It's just word salad, pivot, Answer the question.
And I believe in finding a way that the American people, and we are a diverse people, geographically, regionally, based on whether it be urban, rural, agricultural, we are a diverse people in terms of where we are in our backgrounds. And what the American people do want is that we have leaders who can build consensus.
What are you
Where
saying?
we can figure out
What are you saying?
compromise and understand it's not a bad thing as long as you don't compromise your values.
But you did compromise your values. You supported abolishing private insurance options. Then you pivoted. You didn't support fracking. Now you say you do support fracking. You supported a ban on marijuana. Now you support the legalization of marijuana because it's popular, right? These are all values. Your positions on these things are determined by your core underlying values. Your positions on a lot of these things, if you believe that everyone deserves health care, whatever, these things are all going to be determined by your core underlying values. Why have your positions changed? And if your positions have changed, how have your values not changed? That was the question. That was the question. You're rambling about consensus. We don't care. We don't care.
To find common sense solutions. And that has been my approach.
Let's move on to the economy.
Wrong.
As you were saying, well, first of all, the economy and inflation, those are the primary concerns of the American voters this election year. You just got some blockbuster jobs report, a blockbuster job report the other day. And there are lots of signs that the American economy is doing very well. Better than most countries, I think.
The U.S. economy is always doing better than most countries. What kind of question is that?
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question.
But the American people don't seem to be feeling it. Groceries are 25% higher than when you took office. And people are blaming you and Joe Biden for that. Are they wrong?
So you are correct that under our leadership, the United States of America has recovered and is stronger than any other so-called developed nation in the world.
As it always has been, right? It's like saying, yeah, dude, I drove the car and I didn't even crash it. You're not supposed to crash it, right? That's not like a point in your favor that you drove the car and didn't crash it. We don't care. You're not supposed to crash it, right? The United States economy is always the strongest economy in the world. Congratulations that you didn't crash it, I guess. What's your point?
In particular, after the crisis that was the pandemic. And understand, we came into office facing a disaster in large part because of the mismanagement of the former president, Donald Trump.
Oh, now that is interesting. Massive disaster due to the mismanagement of the former president, Donald Trump. What did you do? What did you do to, alleviate the COVID-19 pandemic? Because if I recall correctly, it was Donald J. Trump who instituted Operation Warp Speed, developed the vaccine, fast-tracked it through the FDA, and then developed the distribution process for the FDA and the distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine. Your administration, the Biden-Harris administration, stepped in and just allowed everything to go as it was already planned to go. The distribution process that Trump already put in place. Trump distributed more than 5 million boxes of food to farmers and families affected by the virus. He distributed $1 trillion in relief to the American people through the form of stimulus checks. He signed the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. He signed several acts related to the VA and the distribution of resources to veterans who were affected by the pandemic. What more do you want from him? He made sure that every American who needed one, no American who needed one went without a ventilator. He closed our borders early and proactively to China. He listened to Dr. Fauci. He listened to Dr. Deborah Birx. What more does your side want from him? You, Kamala Harris, were the one who said when Trump was developing the vaccine that if Trump tells you to take it, you're not going to take it. So which is it? You undermined the vaccine. What is it? What more do you want from the man?
Economy was in a slump. People were dying by the hundreds.
More people died under Trump's administration, more people died under Biden's administration due to COVID than they died from under Trump's administration. So let's look at this real quick. Let's see if CDC has it. I know Statista has it. Let's see if we can find that. Yep, perfect. Right here. More people died under Joe Biden's administration as a result of COVID than died under Trump's administration. So let's see what we got cooking right here. All right. January 21st, 2021. This is the beginning of Joe Biden's administration. Oh, this is world. No, this is this is cases. Oh, there's more cases and deaths. Okay, so here we are. January 21st, 2021. This is the very start of Joe Biden's administration. Got 25,586,442 COVID-19 cases. By the end of his administration, we are dealing with 75%, more than a 75% increase at 111,817,187. Okay. How about COVID deaths? Where's deaths? Deaths. Here we go, right here, deaths. January 21st, 2021. We're looking at 450,000 deaths under Trump's administration as a result of COVID. By the end of Biden's administration, or the end of the pandemic at least, March 13th, 2024, we're looking at 1,219,487 casualties as a result of COVID-19. Right? You're talking about deaths under Trump. What about deaths and cases under your administration? Because they were exponentially higher. Get a grip. You're just blowing smoke up everyone's ass.
It was a real crisis. But because of our approach and our work.
Oh shit, I just realized that. You guys haven't even been seeing, sorry. My bad. Anyway, let's just check right here. I'll show you. So this is what I was looking at before. I just realized that the camera wasn't on there. Sorry, it's hard to remember to switch. So here's January of 2021. This is when Joe Biden took office, January 21st. 25,000 cases. By the end of the pandemic under Joe Biden, you had 111,000 cases. That's more than a 75% increase. And then if we look at deaths, right here on January 21st, 2021, Joe Biden's effective first day in office, you're looking at 450,000 deaths under Trump. By the end of his, by the end of the pandemic under his watch, you're looking at 1,219,000 deaths under Joe Biden.
Historic low unemployment in America among all groups of people. We now have an economy that is thriving by all macroeconomic measures. We have recovered in a way that we have created almost 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. We have created over 16 million new jobs as a whole. And, to your point, prices are still too high. And I know that, and we need to deal with it, which is why part of my plan, you mentioned groceries. Part of my plan is what we must do to bring down the price of groceries. I'm taking on an issue I've taken on before as Attorney General, the issue of price gouging, which is not all, but some corporations and businesses that take advantage of a crisis and jack prices up, making the cost of groceries and other everyday essentials too expensive for the American people.
But
I'm taking on the issue of housing. It's a big issue in our country. It's too expensive. There were generations before us that believed they could achieve the American dream, which included home ownership. Now I travel our country. I talk to young people every day.
What's up? Yep.
And they are so concerned they'll never be able to afford to buy a home or even start.
By the way, her grand solution for this whole issue was give first-time generational home buyers a grant of $20,000, and that'll solve the whole problem, according to Kamala Harris. And that doesn't mean like this is your first house. You get a $20,000 grant. This is like you're the first person in your family who's bought a house. You can get a $20,000 grant, and that'll solve the housing problem. Trust.
The family.
Oh, sorry. And I believe she was going to build 30 million homes, I think it was. No explanation on where the money was going to come from, but she's going to build 30 million homes.
Because of the cost of housing. So part of my plan is to put the resources into partnering with builders and developers to create incentives for them to build 3 million new homes
3 million.
by the end of my first term. And
no explanation on how she's going to incentivize that. No explanation on where the money's going to come from. She's just going to build 3 million houses.
The plan includes giving first-time home buyers a $25,000 down payment assistance.
Well, let's-
so they
First-time generational home buyers.
can just get their foot in the door.
Well, let's talk about that. You want to expand the child tax credit.
Yes, I do.
You want to give tax breaks to first-time home buyers.
Yes,
And people starting small businesses.
correct.
But it is estimated by the Nonpartisan Committee for Responsible Federal Budget that your economic plan would add $3 trillion to the federal deficit over the next decade. How are you going to pay for that?
Okay, so the other economists that have reviewed my plan versus my opponent, because this is an election and there are two choices. Everyone from Goldman Sachs to Moody's to 16 Nobel laureates. So on the first point, comparing my economic plan to Donald Trump's economic plan, they have reviewed it and determined that my economic plan would strengthen America's economy, his would weaken it.
That was not the question. The question was, how are you going to pay for this $3 trillion price tag that you are assigning to the policies that you'd like to implement? You'd like to build 3 million new houses. You're going to pull them all out of your ass and plop them down in the suburbs of America. You are going to give $25,000 to first-time home buyers. How are you going to pay for that? And she says, well, my plan is actually better than Donald Trump's, according to some Nobel laureates, actually. I paid them to support my plan over his, and yes. So actually, that's how I'm going to pay for it. That's not the question. We don't care. We don't care. We don't care. How are you going to pay for it? Normalize
16
answering the question. J.D. Vance has no
Nobel
problem doing
laureates,
this.
Moody's, others, have determined after reviewing what Donald Trump is proposing, that he would induce inflation, increase inflation, and bring about a recession by the middle of next year.
But-
My plan, Bill, if you don't mind, my plan is about saying that when you invest in small businesses,
Can't wait
you
for that
invest in the
recession.
middle class, and you strengthen America's economy. Small businesses are part of the backbone of America's economy.
But pardon me, Madam Vice
Congrats.
President. The question was, how are you going to pay for it?
There we go.
One of the things is I'm going to make sure that the richest among us who can afford it pay their fair share in taxes.
They already pay their fair share in taxes. Check this out. Watch this. Look at this. Let's see. Here we go. Right here. Look at this. Check this out. So you want to tell me how this is fair? I actually think they're paying more than their fair share. Because look at this. The top 1%'s income share rose from 22% in 2020 to 26.3% in 2021. And its share of federal income taxes paid rose from 42.3% to 45.8%. Which means that 1% of the country, the billionaires, the rich people, are paying almost half of all income taxes. Can you please tell me how that's fair? I think the middle class isn't paying their fair share. And I'm a member of the middle class, right? How is that fair? 1% of the country pays 45% of all income taxes. Check this out. Look at this. Where is it? Where the hell is it? There we go. The top 50% of all taxpayers paid 97% of all federal individual income taxes, while the bottom 50%, I'm going to try that again. The top 50% of all taxpayers paid 90% of all federal individual income taxes, while the bottom 50% paid the remaining 3%. So we're just going to raise taxes even more on the people that already pay 90% of all income taxes in the United States, right? We're going to raise taxes on the top 1% that already pays 50% of all individual income taxes in the United States, because that makes sense. You know, they're not paying their fair share. They've been paying more than their fair share since the first billionaire ever rose in America. No, 1%, the top 1% of the United States paid almost 50% of all individual income taxes. So the top 1%, the ultra wealthy, paid 45% of all income taxes. Okay. 50%, the top 50% of the country paid 97% of all federal individual income taxes. So this whole like billionaires need to pay their fair share. Wrong.
Listen, again, my opponent, when he was president, issued a tax cut for people like himself, billionaires and the biggest corporations. My perspective is everybody needs to pay their fair share. It is not right that teachers and nurses and firefighters are
pay 3% of all individual income taxes.
Paying a higher tax rate than billionaires and the biggest corporations.
But
I plan on...
They're paying... They're not, first of all, they're not paying a higher tax rate. Teachers and firefighters and middle classers are paying a lower tax rate. They're in a lower tax bracket than billionaires, first of all. Second of all, they're also paying in volume less dollars because they have less dollars. Again, 45% of all individual income taxes are paid by the top 1% of the country, and 97% of all individual income taxes are paid by the top 50% of the country. Billionaires are paying their fair share. They're paying more than their fair share. They're compensating for the slack that everyone else leaves behind.
Making that fair.
But we're dealing with the real world here.
But the real world includes...
How are you going to get this through Congress?
Oh.
You know, when you talk quietly with a lot of folks in Congress, they know exactly what I'm talking about because their constituents know exactly what I'm talking about. Their constituents are those firefighters and teachers and nurses. Their constituents are middle-class, hardworking folk who know that it is not right that hardworking people are paying a higher tax rate than the richest people who can afford to pay their fair share. So that's how we deal with it. But understand also that this is, yes, it is about how we pay for what we're doing, but understand it doesn't end there. My plan is actually about strengthening America's economy, not just netting zero. My plan is about doing what we can do for small businesses and startups. Right now, the tax deduction bill for a startup, $5,000. In 2024, nary a person going to be able to start a small business with $5,000. So I'm going to extend it to $50,000. My plan is about what we need to do to, yes, expand the child tax credit, because for young families, for the first year of their child's life, $6,000 allows them to buy a crib, a car seat, and just be able to not just get by, but get ahead for that most critical stage of their child's development. We all benefit from that. We all benefit from that.
I understand, but that sounds great. It does. It all sounds good. But the reality is these tax cuts have been in place for years.
They're about to expire.
Yes, and Congress has
Yeah, I want
shown.
to see what she said about
All
this.
get buy a crib, a car seat, and just be able to not just get by, but get ahead for that most critical stage of their child's development. We all benefit from that. We all benefit from that.
I understand, but that sounds great. It does. It all sounds good. But the reality is these tax cuts have been in place for years.
They're about to expire.
Yes, and Congress has shown no inclination to move in your direction.
I disagree with you. There are plenty of leaders in Congress who understand and know that the Trump tax cuts blew up our federal deficit and care about the deficit in a way that they know. We must address it by making sure that our tax policy reflects fairness and, again, understand none of us, and certainly I cannot afford to be myopic in terms of how I think about strengthening America's economy.
So we need to make sure that America's tax plan is fair. Let's check this out real quick. Here we go. Okay, so when you actually look at the data that you can find available on the IRS's website, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2018 that Trump implemented overwhelmingly helped middle classers. So look at this, for example. People making who had a gross income of $15,000 to $50,000 a year enjoyed an average tax cut of 16 to 26% in 2018. People who earned $50,000 to $100,000 received an average tax break of about 15 to 17%. And those earning $100,000 to $500,000 saw a tax cut of 13%. Now, by comparison, when you look at people who made $1 million or more, they received a tax cut of less than 6%. Okay? So everyone got a tax break, right? You make more than $1 million, you get 6% off your taxes. You know, your burden is reduced by 6%. You make $15,000 to $50,000 a year. You fall smack dab in the middle class of the United States, right? You're right in that, regardless of whether you're on the high end or the low end of that, you fall right somewhere near the median income of the United States. You get an average tax cut of 16 to 26%. Overwhelmingly benefiting the middle class. Some people say, well, yeah, but the person, 6% for the person making $1 million a year is a lot more than 6% for 15 to 26% for the person making $15,000 to $50,000 a year. And that's true, but it's a smaller share of the person's income. That's why we do this proportionally with percentages, right? Effectively, every tax law is done on the basis of percentages, right? Because we're taking a proportional share of each person's income. So if you have a tax burden of, I don't know, $1,000 a year, and you get a tax break of 20%, you get $200 back. That's pretty damn good. Instead of paying $1,000, you're now paying $800. Pretty good. Pretty good. And that's not even, most of these tax breaks weren't even 20%. They were up to 26%. It's almost 30% of your total tax burden, right? And again, this isn't like portions of your income. This is portions of what you owe to the IRS at the end of the year. Most people who are making less than $50,000 a year aren't going to owe $1,000 in taxes at the end of the year, because you also have to remember that your employer is slicing and dicing portions of your paycheck every month and forking it over to the federal government. So usually you're probably actually going to get a refund, right? So overwhelmingly help the middle class. People in the upper middle class receive tax breaks of 15 to 17%, which was less than the lower to middle class. And then people making over $500,000, or sorry, making between $100,000 and $500,000 a year receive the tax break of 13%. Super good. Super good policy.
And that has to include, where are we investing our resources in a way that we maximize the return on the investment? Let me tell you something. I am a devout public servant. You know,
Scotty, thank you
I'm
for the
also
follow,
a
man. I appreciate it. Or the sub.
capitalist. And I know the limitations of government. Part of the work I've always done and the work I will do as president includes engaging the private sector to join in what we can do, whether it be, again, tax incentives for builders or developers, or what we need to do to increase the...
Who are those developers? Oh, tax incentives for a developer. That's interesting. I think those are those rich people you were just talking about a second ago. Now you're going to give them tax incentives? That's crazy.
Work I've already done to get some of our biggest finance houses and corporations to invest in community banks to increase access to capital for small businesses.
So
all
if-
of this work must be done, but we have to have a holistic approach that is comprehensive.
I guess what I was asking, if all of this makes so much sense, why has this not been done? You're dealing with a Congress that is divided, that many are in opposition to not only you, but your policies. So how are you going to make this
Bill,
come true?
if
Great
I
question.
approached my life as though, well, it's never been done before, therefore it cannot be done.
That's not what he asked. That is not what he asked. He asked you, why hasn't it been done? Not what is your position on, do you feel, the question was not, you know, this hasn't been done before. Do you feel like you can actually do it? That was not the question. The question was, why has your administration, the Biden-Harris administration, which was currently in office at this time, not done this yet?
I wouldn't be sitting here in this interview with you. That's the truth. But I do believe that we have to have leadership in our country as we turn the page on all of these sadly powerful forces that have been trying to divide us. We have to turn the page on that and chart a new way forward that is driven by building consensus and building common ground. Listen, you look at my campaign. I am supported by over 200 former members of Mitt Romney, John McCain,
We
both
do
President
not care.
Bush, and even
We do not care.
former President Trump's teams. I have the support of people who, Republicans, who understand what is at stake in this election, be it as it relates to our democracy and our most fundamental principles. And I do believe, based on a collective understanding we have, that America's politics has to get back to the place of encouraging healthy debate, but not division for the sake of division.
Just a couple more economic questions here.
Sure.
Donald Trump says that tariffs on imports, well, that would be the solution to all of our economic woes. You criticize his plan for tariffs, yet the Biden-Harris administration left many of the Trump-era tariffs in place, especially when it regards China. And President
Do you mind if I sit back a little?
expanded.
China. I have to have.
Continue the Trump-era tariffs if you're elected?
So part of the real problem that economists and others have pointed out about Trump's approach. In this election, he is advocating what is at least a 20% tariff across the board on everyday necessities and goods, which economists have estimated will cost the average American family more than almost $4,000 a year, more than what they're already paying. For everyday
you've got tariffs.
goods, but let me get to my point. On everyday goods, so a across the board blanket policy on tariffs for everyday goods and necessities. Tariff policy we cannot afford to have that is just a blind policy without looking at
Oh, it's not a blind policy. It is not a blind policy. We just got Canada and Mexico to make massive concessions, and he's still got them on the ropes. He's still negotiating with them and saying that he's going to reinstitute the tariffs in a month if they don't give him more of what he wants. He's just extracting American interests from Canada and Mexico.
Talking about, and what will it induce? What will it incentivize? On the point about China, look, America has to win the competition for the 21st century.
China. I have.
And we need to have policy that includes investing in America, investing in American workers, investing in American manufacturing, investing in American supply chain. And that is, I believe, smart and important policy, not only for the sake of our security, but also our prosperity.
Make sure to like the live, guys.
Let's move on to immigration. You recently visited the southern border and embraced President Biden's recent crackdown on asylum seekers. And that crackdown produced an almost immediate and dramatic decrease in the number of border crossings. And you said you would take it even further. If that's the right answer now, why didn't your administration take those steps in 2021?
So we came into office,
good.
and almost hours, Bill, after our inauguration, the first bill we proposed to Congress was to fix our broken immigration system, knowing that if you want to actually fix it, we need Congress to act. It was not taken up. Fast forward to a moment when a bipartisan group
Let's do this
of members of the United States Senate, including
fast.
one of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, got together, came up with a border security bill, which I support.
Oh, God.
Guess
Here we
what
go.
happened? Donald Trump got word that this bill was afoot and could be passed, knowing that it could fix part of the problem.
No.
And he wants to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. So he told his buddies in Congress, kill the bill, don't let it move forward.
But Madam Vice President,
That is not what happened. Okay. So this border bill was terrible. Okay. So at the time that this bill was attempted to be pushed through Congress, what it said, you know what? Let's just pull it up, man. Let's just pull up the bill. Let's just pull it up. We do research on this stream. Let's pull it up. Let's pull it up. All right, here we go. So this bill would have given Joe Biden the authority to act on the border, to shut the border down and really act on the issue, right? And that's just assuming he would. Like, he would just have the authority. He doesn't have to because of this bill. He would just have the authority, and the secretary would also potentially have the authority. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So mandatory activation of this bill, the emergency powers given in this bill. So during a period of 7 consecutive calendar days, there is an average of 5,000 or more aliens who are encountered each day. Okay, that's how it gets activated on a mandatory basis. Okay, on any one calendar day, a combined total of 8,500 or more aliens are encountered. Now, there is a discretionary activation. Oh, this is discretionary activation here. Okay. The secretary may activate the Border Emergency Authority if during a period of 7 consecutive calendar days, there is an average of 4,000 or more aliens encountered each day. This 4,000 number, this is the first available point at which these emergency powers could ever be activated. This is when the president can choose to activate it, but doesn't have to use the powers, right? The mandatory activation is when the emergency powers get activated automatically. Again, Joe Biden could have chosen whether or not to use those emergency powers, but this is when he automatically has the powers, right? So he can choose to activate the emergency powers on a discretionary basis if 4,000 or more aliens cross over the border. If during a 7-day period of 7 calendar days, there is an average of 4,000 or more aliens who cross each day. At this point in time, that 4,000 number, the earliest point at which these emergency powers could be activated, was twice what the current daily average was, right? So at that point, we had a border crisis, so much so that Congress is attempting to push a bill through. But at that time, if you passed this bill, the emergency powers would actually be taken away from Joe Biden because he previously used an executive order to activate very similar powers prior. It would roll back his ability to police the border and say that he's only allowed to use emergency powers to police the border if it gets twice as bad as it already was. Okay. And then on a mandatory basis, it would have to get more, extremely more than twice what it was at that point. Okay. And now here's where it gets interesting. So, let's see. We have to find mandatory deactivation. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, let's just go back to the mandatory. It's pretty close to the mandatory thing, so let's see. Okay, calculated using the sum of limitations, implementation, suspension of authority. The Secretary shall suspend activation of the Border Emergency Authority and the procedures under subsections A, B, C, and D not later than 14 calendar days after on which the following occurs, if applicable. There we go. In case of activation under subparagraph A, paragraph 3, that's mandatory activation, right? So that's going to be either activation here. I think. Let's just make sure. Hold up. 75%. Activation under the clause of. Oh, it's all. Yeah, it's all of it. 3B. Yeah, so that's mandatory activation. So if any of these things happen, we'll go with section B here because it's relating to mandatory activation, which is going to be the lowest bar that it has, the highest bar that it has to reach, right? So if we go under mandatory activation and we look at the automatic suspension, in the case of activation under clause 1 or 2 of paragraph 3B, there is during a period of 7 consecutive days an average of less than 75% of the encounter level described in such clause 1, which is going to be 5,000 people, which is going to place this at about 300 or 3,750, which was at the time about double again what it was at the time. So you can activate it on a mandatory basis or on a discretionary basis at 4,000, which is again just about double what it was at this time. But if it gets mandatorily activated at 5,000 people, if it drops below 70% of that, or 3,750, it gets automatically rescinded. So even if the issue is twice as bad as it was at the time this bill was written, the powers are automatically rescinded because it dropped below 70%. It doesn't make any sense.
I've been covering the border for years, and so I know this is not a problem that started with your administration.
Correct.
But there was an historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border the first 3 years of your administration. As a matter of fact, arrivals quadrupled from the last year of President Trump. Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did in 2021?
So regionally and actually globally, we have seen this as an issue.
What's up, Crombie?
And America's obviously not immune from this issue. But the focus has to be, to your point, you've been covering it for years, it's a long-standing.
And to be clear, that stuff I went over in the border bill just now, that's why Donald Trump publicly denounced it. Not because he didn't want Kamala Harris and Joe Biden to have a win. If they wanted a win, they would have just signed H.R. 2, which was the Republicans' border bill that they tried to push through. He could have just signed it, right? Easily. Refused to.
And solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions, which have not been picked up. And then when there was a border security bill, my opponent
A shitty border security bill.
decided to run on the problem instead of fixing the problem. And I understand.
No. Donald Trump openly endorsed H.R. 2. It passed in the House, right? It needed a Senate pass and Joe Biden's signature. It needed Joe Biden's endorsement, and they could have passed it through during Joe Biden's administration. What did they do? They refused to. Why? Because they don't actually care about the border, right? They tried to push through this shitty border bill that would not actually fix the issue, and for anything to be done under the powers of this border bill, the issue would have to be twice as bad as it was at the present time when the bill was written. Right, twice as bad, and if it gets more than twice as bad, or have to get more than twice as bad, and if it gets back down to the point where it's almost exactly twice as bad, the powers get rescinded. So you're looking at a situation where you can use this if it's like 2.5 times as bad, all the way up to like 1 million times as bad, right? Terrible. Why would you ever want that? We want to address the current border crisis at the time this bill was written, right? And the bill didn't do that. The bill didn't address the current border crisis, right? It put guardrails and prevented the border crisis from being addressed by limiting the amount of power to police the border the executive branch had. Why would he support that bill?
What that bill would have done, that border security bill would have put 1,500 more agents at the border, which is why the Border Patrol Union supported it. It would have put more resources into stemming the flow of fentanyl.
But that was
Which is a
just this past
scourge.
year. That was just this past year. What I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think
Hell yeah. Great
the
question.
policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a
Here
problem.
we go. Word salad. Get ready.
But
but
the
the-
numbers did quadruple
And the
under
numbers
your
today,
watch.
because of what we have done, we have.
You guys want to see the graph of border crossings? Okay. Look at this. Look at this. We're looking at about 500,000 for Trump's whole administration. In 2019, it spiked. You've got 1 million, right? You got 1.1 million in 2019. 2020, we're back down to 646,000, which is actually lower than 2018. 2021 hits. This is Joe Biden's first year in office. He assumed office on January 20th, 2021. Look what we got. 2 million. 2 million border crossings. Fiscal year 2022, 2.7 million border crossings. Fiscal year of 2024, 2.9 million border crossings. Jesus. Let's see if we can find another graph. I want like a chart. I don't think we're going to find a chart. I know it's on here somewhere. Border. Let's look at border encounters. There we go. Well, actually, don't know what this is gonna be. Yeah, look at this. Wait, this is actually hilarious. Holy crap! Look at this. This is 2024. Massive peaks. Massive peaks. You got a little dip as Trump is coming into office here. This is 2023. Look how high it is. This is 2022. And this is 2025. Look at this. They're down by more than 150,000. Jeez. Jeez. Look at this. Oh my Lord. Oh my God. Crazy. All right, let's get back to it.
The flow of illegal immigration
Feed
by
it, Claude
half.
AI.
Should you
We
have
have
done
cut
that?
the
Should you
flow
have
of
done that?
fentanyl by half, but we need Congress to be able to act, to actually fix the problem. I was just at the border. I'm talking with these
For the first time,
incredible
by the
men
way.
and women who are working around the clock, because again, they don't have the resources.
I've been to the border more times than Kamala Harris. And I live on the West Coast.
They need. We need an act of Congress.
northern
They're
West
the
Coast.
First to do it. Donald Trump told them don't act. I talked with the Border Patrol agents, some of the leaders. Part of the issue that they identified is we need more asylum judges. We need more processing of people who are coming to our border, and the resources aren't there. You know how those resources, commensurate with the need, get dedicated? Congress has to act.
But I guess my question is, it's a pretty simple one. If this is the right answer now, what you tried to do with the bipartisan bill.
And what we
this
tried to do
spring.
on day one, Bill, and what we tried to do on day one, when we came in, first order of business before we did the Inflation Reduction Act, before we did successfully. by
The
way.
Inflation Reduction Act, well, he did successfully? Wrong.
Wrong.
The Inflation Reduction Act did nothing to reduce inflation. It was a climate change bill in disguise. We spent more money on climate change proposals in the Inflation Reduction Act than we spent on the Vietnam War adjusted for today's dollars. I am not kidding you. I am not kidding you. The Inflation Reduction Act spent $1 trillion. $1 trillion on climate change proposals, which is about, adjusted for today's dollars, what we spent on the Vietnam War. Insane amount of money. What did it do to reduce inflation? Nothing. Didn't do anything. The Congressional Budget Office and Penn Wharton both predict that the Inflation Reduction Act would have done nothing to reduce inflation, and it didn't. Right? Let's look at it. This is the Senate Committee on Budget. CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, found the so-called Inflation Reduction Act will not reduce inflation. In fact, the bill could slightly increase inflation in 2023. Let's see. Penn Wharton. Yes, the Penn Wharton budget model, PWBM, is estimated that the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 would have negligible impact on inflation. It does nothing to reduce inflation.
Without one.
I'll look into it, Tora, for sure.
Before we did the bipartisan infrastructure bill, before we passed the first meaningful piece of legislation to deal with gun violence in America in 30 years, the first thing we did was to offer a comprehensive solution to create a pathway for citizenship and for people to earn it, and to deal with what we need to do to put more resources to ensure that we are able to heighten our level of security at the border.
So we do need to move on because our time is short, but I'm trying to understand how it is that with this emphasis on the border, the numbers of crossings quadrupled under the first 3 years of the Biden-Harris administration. How did that happen?
There are a variety of factors that relate to what we have seen globally and what we are not immune from at our own border in terms of what we have seen in terms of surge of immigration and irregular migration. And there are solutions at hand, but we've got to have leaders who are solution-oriented, which we've been and are, and I am going forward.
What are you saying?
Instead of leaders who want to make it a problem they can run on.
That's, again, not what
Talking
happened.
about-
The border bill is terrible.
That person you're mentioning right now, you have accused Donald Trump of using racist tropes when it comes to Haitian immigrants in Springfield.
They're eating the dogs.
When it comes to birtherism, when it comes to
They're
Charlottesville.
eating the
In
dogs.
fact, you have called him a racist and divisive. Yet Donald Trump has the support of millions and millions of Americans. How do you explain that?
So let's just break down what you just talked about and talk about
Really?
it in the context of the words
Spit it out.
that Donald Trump has spoken.
Yeah,
And
let's
the
look at the context of the words that Donald Trump has spoken. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Stock market continues. And as I have said, color of our skin, no matter the color of our skin, we all live under the same laws. We all salute the same great flag. And we are all made by the same Almighty God. We must love each other, show affection for each other, and unite together in condemnation of hatred, bigotry, and violence. We must rediscover the bonds of love and loyalty that bring us together as Americans. Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans. We are a nation founded on the truth that all of us are created equal. We are equal in the eyes of our Creator. We are equal under the law.
Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, and other white supremacist groups. That's what Donald Trump has said. He's not a racist. You're an idiot.
Actions he has taken, and whether that is reflective of who we are as Americans, knowing we have.
I think
much
it's pretty
more
damn
in common
reflective.
that separates us. We have a former president who wants to be president again, who has a bouquet of microphones in front of him, who has said the most vile lies about a group of legal immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. And if I may, Bill, let me just say something. You know, from the time I was a prosecutor to attorney general to now vice
Thank you,
president,
Marie,
I learned very early in my
for the
career,
sub.
when the voters bestow on you the authority to have these positions, you must be very
Thanks, Shawnee.
thoughtful about how you use that microphone in front of you. And, you know, when I was Attorney General, the words I spoke could move markets. So the idea that the former president, who again is running to be president, would use that microphone in a way that is about vilifying and demeaning a whole population of people. You know what has happened because of that? What,
People are talking
one
about
day
it. That's what's happening.
when this happened was a school day, picture day for an
They're
elementary
eating
school.
the dogs.
Picture day. You know what picture day is for our children? They get excited the night before. We put out the clothes they're going to wear. They go to school making sure their faces are clean and their hair is done. And they go to school for picture day.
What are
know
you
happens to
talking
those
about?
children?
What are you
Kids
on about?
evacuate that day
You're rambling.
because of the fear of the threats that were being issued in Springfield because of the words of Donald Trump.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
so
listening.
I say,
Tora, I'm listening to the tone of her voice, and I'm looking at her eyes. She looks like she's hammered. How
that
many whiskey sours did you have before this interview?
I'm glad you are pointing these comments
Let me
out.
do, let me
that
do
he-
it. I'm glad you're pointing these comments out. I just think that all presidents need to be, on the basis of consensus. We all just consensus. That's what it is. Consensus. Everyone, and he's racist, and they're eating the dogs.
he has made that have resulted in a response by most reasonable people to say it's just wrong. It's just wrong.
It's just wrong.
You have
It's
said
just-
you want to be the
it's just wrong.
president of all the people.
Yes.
With so many people supporting Donald Trump,
Where did I set my
and
drink?
called a racist, how do you bridge that seemingly unbridgeable gap?
Hey, thanks for the super chat. I appreciate it. Hey, Twigs, how's it going? It's good to see you, Twigs. Twigs is an OG, guys. Thank you so much for the super. And thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I believe that the people of America want a leader who's not trying to divide us and demean. I believe that the American people recognize that the true measure of the strength of a leader is not based on who you beat down, it's based on who you lift up. And I have traveled around our country, and I've met with people of every background and walk of life, including people who have supported Donald Trump in the past, who say to me they're ready to turn the page, they're exhausted
Who?
with what he has been doing and that approach, and they want to chart a new way forward for our country.
So, was
He's like, I don't know how to.
democracy best served by President Biden stepping down and basically handing you a nomination?
That's a good
You didn't have
question.
to go through a primary process. You didn't have to fight off other contenders. That's not really the way our system was intended to work.
So President Biden made a decision that I think history is going to show is rare.
Hey,
among
thanks
leaders.
again, Twigs. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying the content, Twigs. I appreciate the supers a lot, man.
Which was to put country before self.
Excuse me.
And I am proud to have earned
Tora.
the support of the vast majority of delegates and to have been elected the Democratic nominee to be vice president.
You weren't elected. Wait, hold up.
The Democratic nominee, majority of delegates, and to have been
Oh.
elected the Democratic
At the
nominee
DNC, I forgot this was.
to be vice president of the United States.
Yeah.
I am honored to have
But she wasn't
received
elected by the people. She was elected by politicians.
the support and endorsement of over 200 Republicans who served in the last
200?
3 Republican presidential administrations. I am proud to have earned the support of leaders of our national security.
You didn't earn it. You were the last resort. Let's be very clear about that. You didn't earn shit. You're the last man standing against Donald Trump. And that's how you got into the position you're in. That's it.
Community. I am proud to have received the endorsement of leaders around this country from every background and walk of life to
Patrick, thanks for
fight
the sub,
in
man.
this election over the next month for our democracy and the principles upon which
Spit it
stands.
out.
What is at stake in this election? You mentioned our democracy is whether we are a nation that abides by and respects the rule of law, and that we have a president who is the champion of following and respecting and upholding rule of law.
But I would
not
think that-
someone who has been convicted of 34 felonies, who tried to overturn the free and fair election.
By the way, the modifier on the crime. So Trump was convicted of misrepresenting expenses on his filings, right? So he filed like the hush money stuff, not illegal, by the way. He filed the hush money. It went through his lawyer. His lawyer reviewed it and then paid the people out. He labeled that as a legal expense, which it is, right? And that's why they convicted him of that crime, business fraud, right? During his campaign. Okay. So what they added as a modifier is that specific crime, that business fraud crime, can be upgraded to a felony. It's a misdemeanor normally. Can be upgraded to a felony if there is an underlying crime proven or present, right? There was no underlying crime, but they claimed that he was in violation of the Election Commission Act, right? Never proved it, never held him on trial for that, never convicted of him of that, but still upgraded his crime to a felony, even though they'd never proven the underlying crime, which is, by the way, a federal crime and not a state crime. He was convicted in state court. Okay? It's ridiculous.
Election, which was the will of the people on January 6th, not someone who has said he would be a dictator on day one, not someone who has said,
I agree
and
with you,
these are
J-Dub.
his words, he would terminate the Constitution of the United States of America.
But I think this truncated process is why people think or say they don't really know who you are.
Well, Bill, there's no question. Look, I've been in this race for 70 days. And there is work to be done. It is, without any question, a short period of time. There's no
Tell us what the work is.
which is why I'm traveling around
Excuse
the
me.
country. As I said earlier, I mean, you've seen me. I'm from one state to the next to the next. I don't know how many states I've been in this last week alone. Literally, I've lost count. So it is my responsibility to earn the vote, and I'm going to work to do that.
3/4 of the American voters, or likely voters, say that they are concerned about the possibility of election-related violence. And with 2 assassination attempts against former President Trump, the country seems near a boiling point. What can you do? What should you do to lower the temperature?
Well, first, let's start with those attempts, assassination attempts on the former president. I was deeply disturbed, shocked,
Excited.
and shaken
Let's be honest.
when they happened. I called the former president to check on him. But it is really important that all of us speak loudly, regardless of who we're voting for, to say our differences have to be settled at the ballot box.
But you're going to call him a racist. You're going to talk about how he's a felon on bullshit charges. You're going to demonize him in every way physically possible. You're running a campaign against him, not for yourself, and you wonder why he's getting shot.
Not through violence.
And that was, by the way, like the 5th attempt on his life. There was attempts on his life when he ran for president in 2016 while he was president during his first term, and then 2 more while he ran for president in 2024.
Not lose our soul in terms of who we are as Americans
Can't lose it if you don't got it.
by resorting to violence.
Thank you,
to
49
settle
hands
our
for the
differences,
sub. I
much
appreciate
less
it.
to make a decision about who's going to be the next president of the United States.
Let's hit on some more foreign policy.
There's a bug in here.
Yeah, there is
Which
one.
foreign
It's
country
sitting
do you
right there.
consider to be our greatest adversary?
Little cockroach.
Well, there are different reasons that we should be thoughtful about each. Most recently, I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. And look, I mean, Iran has...
Twig says, what do you think about Colombia taking illegals and then holding them? Just a power move to deter tariffs? And do you think it'll affect anything beyond what is, or just help us out? Yeah, I mean, it's probably to avoid tariffs. They're probably just falling in line to avoid getting tariffed. I think that probably is what's going on. They're falling in line with Trump. They're taking illegals and holding them is definitely a good thing. They're accepting our shipments of illegals. It's definitely a good thing.
American blood on their hands, okay? And what we saw in terms of just this attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles, what we need to do to ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power, that is one of my highest priorities.
So if you
And
have
that must
proof
be.
that Iran is building a nuclear weapon, would you take military action?
I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals at this moment.
What about China? China is strongly asserting its
Let's speed this up a
dominance,
little
its
bit.
control of the South China Sea, especially around
Yeah.
the Philippines. What is the U.S. responsibility for keeping China from simply taking over the South China Sea?
Well, I have actually worked very closely with the leaders in the Philippines on just this very issue, and including the work that we are doing in terms of coordination between our military and training. And
You guys are, Tora, what are you talking about? You guys are important enough. When I'm checking my phone, I'm just checking how many people are in the stream.
what needs to happen in terms of protecting the freedom of the South China Sea. China, first of all, we must win the competition for the 21st century with China. We must be able to compete and win. We should not seek conflict. But we have to understand that there are parameters in which we must operate that include ensuring, for example, that we protect
Gosh,
American
so
business interests.
boring.
So say if
Well,
China
we-
attacks Taiwan, would we use military force to support Taiwan?
Bill, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals, but listen, we need to make sure that we maintain a one China policy, but that includes supporting Taiwan's ability to defend itself, including what we need to do to ensure the freedom of the Taiwan Strait. But on the issue of China, we also, again, these are not, we cannot afford to have foreign policy that is myopic. We must be able to
We speed her up. We speed her up 2 times, and she sounds like a normal person.
also, as it relates to China, continue to do the work that we have begun to deal with the flow of fentanyl.
Still doesn't make any sense,
That's
but
a real issue. Again, you talk to families around our country who on a constant, sadly, regular basis, meet parents and family members of people who have died from fentanyl, young people who have died from fentanyl. Are we going to stop trying to stem the flow of fentanyl? And we have to deal with that and understand China's role in that and our ability to work with China to stop that flow, which we have begun to do and I'm going to continue to do. We need to make sure we have open lines of communication with China, in particular, military to military. So these issues are all, they're multifaceted.
What about Russia and Ukraine? What does the end of the war, what does success look like in ending the war in Ukraine?
There will be no success in ending that war without Ukraine and the UN Charter participating in what that success looks like.
Would
That
you-
being said, America must stand firm in being a leader in defending international rules and norms that include one of the most important, which is the critical nature and importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Would you meet with President Vladimir Putin to negotiate a solution to the war in Ukraine?
Not bilaterally without Ukraine, no. Ukraine must
That's not
have
the
a say
question.
in the future of Ukraine.
How about, as president, would you support the effort to expand NATO to include Ukraine?
Those are all issues that we will deal with if and when. it
No
comes to
answer.
that point. Right now, we are supporting Ukraine's ability to defend itself against Russia's unprovoked aggression and doing what we can to continue to build and strengthen the alliance around the support for Ukraine's right to be an independent nation, free from having its borders forcefully taken by Russia. And we are going to continue to work closely with our NATO allies to continue to reinforce America's alliance in the context of NATO. Again, in this election, there's a real difference between me and the former president. I believe in
yeah, he has a policy
reinforcing
platform.
the strength of NATO, understanding,
And
again,
he
it is
won.
the greatest military alliance the world has ever known. Donald Trump would pull us out of NATO. Donald Trump, if he were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. Let's be clear about that. He talks about, oh, he can end it on
Well-
day one. You know what that is?
Putin, Trump is president, and Putin is not in Kyiv. So
It's about surrender. Achieving peace and an end to this war is not synonymous with surrender. Those two things are not the same.
It's a hard left turn here, but you recently surprised people when you said that you are a gun owner. And then if someone came into your
That
house,
was not the first time I've
They would get
talked about
shot.
it. That's not the first time I've talked about it. But it's, I mean, I don't talk about it a lot. But
so what kind of gun do you own, and when and why did you get it?
I have a Glock, and I've had it for quite some time. And I mean, look, Bill, my background is in law enforcement, and so there you go.
Have you ever fired it?
Yes, of course I have. At a shooting range, yes, of course I have. And she does give you more detail, and I store it in a lockbox, and it is safely stored, and as any responsible gun owner does.
I'm getting the countdown here, but one last thing. You are sitting here with us. The Trump campaign canceled an interview that they had agreed to participate in this broadcast.
What a stupid question that is.
I'd also like to make note that Trump has already participated in more press briefings than Joe Biden, and he's only been in office for 2 weeks.
I think that, look, I think that your viewers have options in terms of how they're going to hear from him. And I invite them to watch what he says at his rallies. If he is not going to give your viewers the ability to have a meaningful, thoughtful conversation, question and answer with you, then watch his rallies. And what you're going to hear are comments about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. You're going to hear conversations of suggesting that human beings
We do
are
not
eating.
care. I do not care, Kamala Harris. I could care less what your answer to that question is. With that being said, that's the end of the stream, guys. We unbearably made it through 53 minutes of the worst interview I've ever seen. The uncut, unedited CBS 60 minutes interview posted to the Federal Communications Commission's official YouTube channel. Absolutely hilarious. What a savage move. Yeah, I mean, that's just as bad as I thought it was going to be. So yeah, guys, I appreciate you all coming, and I'll probably go live tomorrow again, so I'll see you there. If you guys find anything interesting you want me to react to, definitely send it to me on Discord. Join the Discord if you want to debate people. The link is below this live stream. Just go to the description, and you'll find the link to the Discord there. Go ahead and join. There's a lot of debate channels. You can debate on Israel. You can debate on abortion. You can debate on Trump. You can debate on whatever you want. There's a lot of debate channels. Climate, prisons, all kinds of stuff. You can also join. Thanks, Twigs. I appreciate the $2 again. Super chatted 3 times. Major shout out to Mr. Twigs. He's a very old viewer. He's been here a long time. But yeah, make sure to join the Discord, guys.